Hello and welcome to Cooking for Bachelors. This is the very first episode. We're going to test this little concept here. The idea is you live by yourself and you don't want to cook a whole meal just for one person, right? Well, we're going to make that really easy. Instead of going out to eat and wasting your money, we're going to cook a nice Cajun chicken pasta Alfredo right here today. So we're going to start with our chicken. And as you can see, you just buy any skinless, boneless chicken breast at your grocery store. And we're going to go ahead and fillet them. Now, to fillet a piece of chicken breast like this, you simply take your knife and you cut it down the center. And what that does is it gives you more surface area for your Cajun seasoning. And you can see it comes into two nice thin little pieces. And this one probably doesn't need that. Here's a nice big one right here. We're going to cut that down. And one more. And this is roughly a pound and a half of chicken. Really, it's up to you how much you want to put in there. And there we go. Now our next step. Remember, wash your hands after dealing with raw meats of any kind. So we wash our hands. Now I've got a 12-inch skillet here. You can use non-stick, you can use pretty much anything you want, but with non-stick you got to make sure not to overheat the pan. We're going to put a little olive oil. You can use any kind of oil you have on hand. I prefer olive oil personally. And you want about a medium-high heat. You don't really want it too hot, especially with a non-stick pan. And of course you don't want to use a metal utensil in there, or at least you don't want to gouge the bottom. So you get this oil nice and hot. In the meantime, I've got a pot of water here for our pasta. And I'm going to go ahead and crank that up and get that boiling. Once that comes to a boil, we can just pop the pasta in there. Real simple. Now here's the tricky part. You may think Alfredo sauce is difficult to make. It's really simple. I'm going to start off with about a cup of milk. These are handy. You can get these at the dollar store. They're cheap and you got measuring tools. So you start with a cup of milk. Put that right in your saucepan. Any kind of saucepan will work. Go ahead and turn the fire on that. And you want this about a medium. You don't want it real high. If it's too high, you're going to scorch the milk and separate the butter. Butter being our next ingredient. 1 full stick. It's basically equal parts buttermilk and Parmesan cheese. So 1 whole stick of butter. Pop it in there. Let that melt. Once that melts down, we're going to stir in our Parmesan cheese, about a cup worth of this, and a couple of secret ingredients. So our next step, while we're waiting for this to heat up and melt the butter, we're going to go ahead and season up our chicken. And the best way I find is just regular old cayenne pepper. And we're going to keep this real simple. I'm just going to sprinkle it on there, all over, because what we're going to do is sear it and then cook it in that skillet. You want it cooked all the way through. If you want, you can go ahead and cheat. Throw this in a bowl and just dump a bunch of that on there and toss it around. You can put it in a Ziploc bag and shake it. So next we're going to take our chicken, nicely seasoned, and place it in this hot skillet. That sizzle is the sound you want to hear. It tells you your skillet's plenty hot enough. You want it all in one layer. You don't want anything on top of anything else. You get that all in one nice layer there like that. You want to season these with just a little bit of salt as well. It helps draw the moisture out, helps them cook a little better. And then we're going to get our tongs. They're just about ready to turn. You'll see that this is starting to come to a boil here. So I'm going to wait on turning these for a minute. We're going to go ahead and put our Parmesan in here. This is the best stuff to get right here, the shredded Parmesan cheese. You can always use, of course, the grated that everybody has in their house. They put on your pizza. But the shredded really melts down much better in the milk and butter mixture here. So you just sprinkle that in, stirring it. That's about a cup. You can put a little more in there if you like it a little bit thicker. But you just keep on stirring that until it incorporates, so it fully melts in there. And you want this on a pretty low heat. You really don't want it too high. Alright, I went ahead and added this entire package, which is approximately a cup and a half. That'll give you a little bit thicker sauce, a little more flavor, and besides that, you don't want to have a half a bag laying around in your fridge that you're never going to use. So you might as well just throw it all in there. If it becomes too thick, you can always add a little more milk. Alright, these guys right here are ready to turn. And as you can see, they're nice and crisp on the bottom there, nice and brown. That's what you want. We're going to turn these over, and then we're going to cover the pan. And remember, the type of pan is not all that important. You work with what you have. That's really the key to this show, is you work with what you've got. You can always substitute, but it's not a bad idea to go ahead and plan out your meal. Hit the grocery store with the list. You've got to have a grocery list or you will forget something every single time. And that way you can make a meal. And of course with this meal, I'm going to show another fun little trick of how you can take this meal that'll feed 4 to 5 people and give yourself meals for the rest of the week that you can take to work. We'll get to that here in a minute after we're done cooking this. I'll show you how to portion it out and preserve it for a later date. Basically, you're going to make your own TV dinners. Alright, the cheese is starting to melt. You can see it's kind of gloppy. It's going to take a little bit to get there. So you want to season this with a little salt. And there's nothing like freshly ground pepper. You don't want to use store-bought pre-ground pepper unless, I mean, if that's what you have, that's what you have. It still works. But you can buy these cheap little pepper grinders. It's plastic. It's disposable. As soon as you're done, you'll go pick up a new one. And they even have the little glass ones. There's nothing like freshly ground pepper. So you got a little salt and pepper in there. And I like to throw parsley, partly for looks, and it does have a little bit of an herby flavor. So I just use the dried stuff. You can use fresh if you want, but we're trying to keep it simple here. So go ahead and use the dried stuff. A little parsley in there. I like a little heat, and these red pepper flakes are the best. So we've got that going in there. And you want to just keep stirring this every few minutes. And remember, we're on a really low heat. Look at that fire. It's a very, well, it can go a little higher than that, I suppose, but very low heat. You don't want to scorch it. It'll separate the fat in the butter, and it'll just be an oily mess. So real low heat. Keep simmering that. Chicken is steaming away and browning the bottom side. And look at our pasta water, ready to go. So we're going to dump about half of this box. This is a 1 pound box. And you know what? We're going to do the whole thing. We've got 1.5 pounds of chicken. We might as well put 1 pound of pasta in there. Like I said, none of it's going to go to waste. Trust me. And this is just standard penny pasta. Penny is good. It's just like the mostaccioli noodles, but it has these ridges that capture the sauce. So you put that in there. And this is salt water, by the way. And if you don't have a big boiling pot like this, one little trick, put a little bit of oil in the water so that it doesn't boil over. It keeps it from bubbling over. Okay, I'm going to turn that down a little more. And this is all going to come together real nice here in a few minutes. And let's give that a little stir. You don't want the pasta sticking to the bottom. And we're going to let this simmer and let the chicken cook, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.